Aultemus and the group emerge from the tree line, the snow long gone. The mountainside opens up into a vast savanna with the horizon dominated by a large volcano far off in the distance. Jagged onyx rock formations of various sizes and twisted, alien-looking blue trees shoot out from the tall bronze grasses, giving texture to the landscape as far as they can see. This place isn't all like this, is it? Aultemus asks, looking at the group. Yeah, this is the other side of the mountain range, Zenti explains, but doesn't elaborate. The sun begins to set as the group continues out from the mountains, moving southwest. They find an enclave in some of the onyx rocks a bit into the savanna and set up camp. The group collectively sighs and relaxes in a semicircle under the overhang of the rocks. Zenti picks a spot right next to Fuson, their arms brushing against each other. Finally, some peace and quiet. You guys have no idea how much noise and shit there was in that cabin with that crazy lady who kidnapped me, Fuson groans, lying completely flat on the ground. Are you okay? What did she do? Zenti asks. Sierra and Aultemus notice her tone and demeanor change when she talks to Fuson directly. I don't know. Toward the end, it felt like I was being ripped apart, but it wasn't excruciating. It felt really weird, indescribable. Although, I learned I'm a host for Eladier, Fuson scoffs. Zenti immediately stops and stares at him. Sierra looks at the group to judge their reactions. Aultemus looks at her as she motions him closer and whispers something to him. Oh, what? Zenti shudders. Eladier? The deity. Fuson, this is a stupid joke. Can you just be serious? I'm not joking, Fuson states, looking directly at Zenti. She narrows her eyes and looks at the other two, seeing Sierra whisper to Aultemus. And what are you two talking about? Zenti yells. Aultemus isn't going to know who Eladier is. I'm just catching him up, Sierra retorts. Hey, wait, guys. Where's Monkey Boy? Where's Rilo? Sierra looks at Aultemus, who is frozen in place. All he does for a moment is avert his eyes to the floor, balling his hands into fists and pressing his teeth together. Fuson leans forward, waiting for a response, but finally gets the clue. His eyes widen as he leans back in disbelief. No shit. No shit! What happened? What? Fuson yells. What happened? What did you guys do? We didn't do anything! The guy was shooting arcane magic. How were we supposed to know he could do that? Rilo saved me from him. I messed up. I guess. Aultemus yells back. Zenti and Fuson recoil in shock hearing arcane magic. Fuson gets up and paces around, hitting the ground a couple of times. Let's just go to sleep. Fuson, no more stupid jokes, Zenti announces. Fuson's not joking, Sierra replies. Eladier spoke to me, and I confirmed it with a spirit reading. Zenti rolls her eyes. Not you too with this childish thing. Fuck you, Sierra growls under her breath. Zenti sighs. I'm just gonna pretend I didn't hear that. I'm too tired to deal with this, Zenti responds before turning away from everyone. Everyone else gets ready for sleep as well, Aultemus and Sierra sitting away from Zenti. Fuson finds an awkward spot in the middle of everyone, almost trying to connect them. The next morning, Zenti wakes up to Sierra getting up and leaving the camp. She doesn't react, but instead opens her satchel and begins eating some of the things she had packed. It is neatly wrapped in quality paper and elegantly designed and colorful. About an hour or so later, Fuson gets up. Hey, where's Sierra? He asks Zenti, trying not to wake up Aultemus. Huh? Oh, I'm not sure. She wasn't here when I woke up. Zenti shrugs. Fuson glares at her for a moment, but then gets up and swoops into the air, scanning the environment for Sierra. He spots her on the water's edge of a nearby lake, a little to the southeast. Fuson flies over and lands behind her. Sierra is sitting crisscross in front of the lake, the water not quite reaching her, and appears to be holding something in her hands. Morning, sunshine. Why are you all the way out here? Fuson blurts out. Sierra looks back and rolls her eyes. Haven't you noticed I like being alone sometimes by now? She exclaims back. Fuson walks up and notices she's holding a baby boar. However, the boar has small horns and lion paws instead of hooves. You celebrity types are so stupid. Especially that girlfriend of yours, Ciara comments. Hey, she's not my girlfriend. She sure acts like she is. Whatever. Huh. I didn't think you could get annoyed. Oh, I was, acting. Shut up, Ciara groans, but cracks a smile. Fuson perks up. You smiled. I did it, Fuson remarks, patting himself on the back with the celebratory wing pump. Whatever. Why did you come out here? Were you worried or something? What? I can't be worried? We've been thrust into this random situation, forced to interact, shared experiences the past couple of months. We all seem like normal people, so I've grown attached to you all somewhat. He pauses. I also came over because I was worried. You and Zenti seem to be all ruffled at each other. Yeah, well, at least she didn't haggle me when I woke up this morning. What? She told me you weren't there. Fuson looks confused, but Ciara just sighs and continues petting the boar. She casts a spell on it by tapping its forehead with her finger and lets it go. What? Fuson asks as Ciara gets up and crosses her arms. What? She parrots. The sigh, what was that about? Of course she told you that, Ciara sasses. You guys are big, fancy, important people. What does that have to do with lying? I don't lie all the time, Fuson responds. It has to do with the fact that she has no repercussions for making us like her more, or adjusting her behavior, because reality already favors her so much. She's the queen of the fucking Valkyries. I'm sure you've done that too, Ciara explains. Fuson looks at her for a while, stunned, shifting his eyes to his feet and then out to the horizon of the lake in the silence. Look, I'm not smart enough to respond to that. I'm sorry. That's all I've got, Fuson says in earnest. Ciara lowers her shoulders and arms before she cracks a smile. It's okay. Thanks. Fuson hops up and pats her arm as he hovers to her height. Thank you, he smiles. Let's go back. The two of them walk back up to the camp, Zenti at the top of the rock and Aultemus is still asleep. She notices them walking up and floats down in front of them. Where were you two? Zenti asks casually. There was a lake nearby. I found the flower lady soaking her roots, Fuson explains. Zenti smiles. Say, what was that joke yesterday? You said you were Elidir or something? Okay, that wasn't a joke. And I said, Elidir's in my head, Fuson responds. I don't get it, she stutters. The frustration grows inside of her. Look, this is stupid. Can you just stop? It's easier if I show you. Fuson nervously shrugs as he sits down and closes his eyes. He opens them to being a different color. Zenti immediately notices and is even more confused. Elidir smiles with a quiet hello, her voice slightly different than that of Fuson's. Zenti, upon hearing the change in voice, takes a half step back and looks at Ciara, who nods. I still don't believe it. Prove it. We'll have a Tula, Zenti commands. Elidir would be on par, if not stronger than me in wind magic, right? She flies up into the air, and Elidir follows her up into the clouds. Zenti, don't you think this is silly? Elidir responds. This makes Zenti visibly angry as she puts her wings up, waiting for Elidir to respond. Elidir sighs and responds in kind, putting her wings up as well. Zenti counts down from 5 as they begin, as tunnels of wind shoot down, pushing them both toward the ground, and they both struggle against it. With all the commotion, Aultemus wakes up and sees the wind swirling in the air above. He walks up to Ciara, rubbing his eyes from his sleep. What's going on? Aultemus asks as they watch the duel in the sky. I think this is some sort of non-violent duel ceremony Valkyries have in their culture. I forgot what it's called, and I didn't hear what Zenti said, Ciara responds. They use, wind magic to try to push each other down to the ground, and the first one that hits the ground loses, I think. Doesn't that mean that wind Anphanites have an unfair advantage? Yes. Zenti and Elidir don't move for a few moments at the beginning. Then they both put all of their energy into their wind tunnels and begin plummeting down. Zenti is falling much faster. Zenti is never able to close the gap between her and Elidir, as once she gets close to the ground, she stops pushing wind toward Elidir and tumbles through the air. Eladair lets go of her wind magic as Zenti stumbles without the air resisting her anymore. She tumbles and lands next to Aultemus and Siora. Out of breath, Zenti begins to have an energy-deprived tantrum on the floor. What? I never lose Tulas to Fuson, she cries between breaths. Because Fuson's a water aphanite? Siora snaps back. Yes, but... Zenti stops, frustration permeating her words, not wanting to engage Siora any longer. As Eladair descends, she notices a large, dark figure on the horizon. Trent is in his office with his elaborately crafted wood desk, fine carpet, and velvet furniture. There's nothing on his desk except for a large leather mat, a lamp, a large textbook on astromagic that is flipped to a page in the middle. He paces around the room, taking a break from reading, peering out from one of his windows onto the town and the surrounding buildings. The city isn't big, but the buildings are nice, made out of fine wood, stone, and brick. A few chimneys have some smoke coming out of them, and there is a modest castle nearby in the middle of all the buildings. The windows are all lit in most of the houses. The outside itself is not very bright, as the sky is covered in a layer of thick clouds that are various hues of orange and yellow. They swirl and undulate like a frothing ocean. The dim light causes the sea of grasses outside of the city to have a visible blue glow to them. In his study, there is a tall wooden frame with a clear crystal on top. Trent walks up to it and waves his hands as he glows with the night sky, creating a portal within its frame. He walks in, disappearing from his office altogether, and emerges in the snow-covered forest where Valeria's cabin is. He immediately notices her unconscious on the ground, sighs, picks her up, and travels back into the portal. He lays her down on the couch in his office, covering her with a blanket before returning to his desk to read. An hour passes. Trent walks up to a still unconscious Valeria. Her blonde and pink hair is up in a bun, as Trent's eyes make their way down her slender neck. Trent puts the back of his hand to her forehead and slowly runs it down the side of her cheek, dirty from sleeping in the cabin, with a few cuts and bruises from a fight. His fingers slowly move down as he pulls the blanket from her torso, skimming the leather armor on her chest with his knuckles. Trent pauses before going under one of the flaps and unbuttoning the first few top latches of the armor along her sternum. Trent sighs as he continues to trace her body from her chest up to her neck. As he pulls his hand away, Valeria wakes up, slow and groggy. Trent freezes but shows no emotion, just continues to watch her. As Valeria's gaze meets his, she scrunches up her face and sits up from the couch. Trent steps back and conjures a small amount of water around her hands and rubs her face for a few seconds before the water disappears. Valeria finally looks around, at Trent, at her gambeson. Was this you? She asks, motioning to her open top. She gets up and walks right up to Trent, meeting eye to eye. Well, she prods. He leans his head ever so slightly backward, away from her. Is this what you wanted? She says, grabbing Trent's hand and putting it on her chest. There is a pause as she waits for an answer, but he narrows his eyes at her. What were you, he says before getting knocked down to the floor, Valeria putting one foot on his chest and unbuttoning the rest of her gambeson. This'll make me remember, right? You said I'd remember. You said how things used to be. Remember everything. She yells. Listen, you're supposed... Trent tries to say before Valeria violently kisses him, her eyes and hands glowing green as a mist begins to emanate around her. She slams Trent's head back against the floor and unbuckles his belt. The group flies across the savannah, racing away from the large shadow. Fuson and Zenti carrying Aultemus and Siora with their wind magic as they speed across the plains. Your wind magic is so good, Eladair thinks to Fuson. Thanks, Zenti helped me. I could help you out, you know. Zenti made it seem like you needed it. Yeah, well, Zenti is just the best. That's why. Fuson thinks back. See it? Fuson asks aloud. No, I think we lost it, Aultemus replies as they descend downward. The group lands in a large cave opening with ruins on the walls acting as torches. We can try to lose it through this cave system, if we haven't already, Aultemus suggests. Unlikely, if it knew where we were after you dropped that giant rock on it. Also, there are orcs in this cave. You can tell by the runes, Siora explains. We can't go in then, Zenti states. Why not? Is there something wrong with the orcs? Zenti and Siora both respond at the same time with a yes and a no. It's nothing. Let's go. Fuson commands the rest of the group as he brazenly walks into the cave. Aultemus runs up to him as the two girls drag behind. The cave is illuminated by these runes, which emit a soft, subtle glow, almost like the light of the full moon, keeping the cave from getting too dark. Fuson blinks as Elodie takes over. Hey, Aultemus, I have a question. That spell you always use, what is it? At first, Aultemus is taken aback by the casualness in which this other being speaks to him. Aren't you a deity or something? Yes. Did you know I'm the god of lightning? I don't think it was mentioned. A lot of people think I'm wind because I mostly take the form of a Valkyrie, she explains. So, shouldn't you know what the spell was? Aultemus pauses, an idea dawning on him. I don't think so. I may be old, but some techniques elude me, and that bothers me. So, what is it? When you turn into lightning and dash around, it's not a transformation spell, but it seems simpler than that. But at the same time, you use the transformation as a base. It doesn't seem like you can keep using it for very long, Elodie contemplates. Unaware, Aultemus has stopped listening. Wait, do you know plasma magic? He asks excitedly, stopping in his tracks. Yes, I do. Would you like to learn? Elodie smiles. Of course, Yes, please, Aultemus stutters. Sure. Just show me that trick of yours, Elodie pats Aultemus on the back. What do you know about plasma magic? Elodie asks. Can you make a simple, stable spell? I know it's the evolution of lightning magic, and I've tried to conjure like a simple ball, but it's really difficult. Aultemus tries to conjure the ball with his hands. Sparks of electricity emerge and arcs connect the two of his hands together, but after a flash, nothing happens. Elder does the same with her wings. However, instead of any sparks, a ball of purple-seeming liquid, glowing gel-like energy emerges. You can't think of it like lightning, but a sort of mix between water and lightning. Lightning is just the base. Elder continues to explain as Aultemus tries again with her guidance, but still doesn't manage to get it. They continue on for a good amount of time when suddenly they hear the sound of heavy shifting rock coming from behind them. They see runes disappearing as the walls close in from behind, but not from the front. Coming from the other direction is a light getting brighter, and a tall figure behind it. As the figure gets closer, they see them more clearly and discern their features. The person's skin is a gunmetal gray, and they have black horns coming from their bald head, and a ponytail springing up from the crown of their head. The figure is tall and muscular, and their fingers don't have nails, but rather talons that seem to be similar in texture and color to the horns. They're wearing mostly cloth canvas armor, and the boots look reinforced on the soles, and the rest of the armor is very thin. As they get closer, they put a palm up, and the flame that they were carrying flies up and gets brighter. Outsiders, the man calls. He has an accent. His voice feels as though stone were being grinded into dust. Why are you here? You bring an off-worlder with you. How do you know he's an off-worlder, dust mite? Zenti scoffs at the man. Sorry, sir. What my friend here meant to say is that, was an astute observation you made. Fuson stutters as Zenti finishes speaking. I know what she meant, Harpy. The man sighs, rolling his eyes. Off-worlder, you pick interesting company. It's a long story. We just flew in here by accident. We're being chased by something. We're looking for ways off-world. We're chasing an astromancer who took my brother and was abducting people and... another astromancer. And I know of something otherworldly. But you lured that creature to our door. We will not help you defeat it, but we will help you leave our dwelling, the man says as the group look at each other. He sees Zenti scowling. Does this not sound adequate, Harpy? Yes, it does. We appreciate it, Aultemus interjects, walking up to the man. I appreciate the manners, off-worlder, the man says, putting a hand on Aultemus' shoulder, leaning in to whisper in his ear. Your companions might not appreciate the desperation. Carry yourself stronger, he adds, patting Aultemus on the back. Come, he says, turning around and moving forward. Fuson leads, followed by Zenti. Sierra comes up behind Aultemus and nudges him forward, smiling at him as she secretly casts a spell, calming him down. Aultemus, with his guard down, relaxes and catches up to Fuson behind the man. Since you only heard the pleasantries we expect from the harpies around here, I thought I'd tell you that we're orcs, off-worlder, the orc says. We inhabit this side of the planet, typically called the Flame Valley or the Badlands. Depending on who you're talking to, we live normal lives, it's just different. You're not going to give him the whole context, huh? All, as Zenti tries to explain. What she is referring to is most likely the several eternal wars between the so-called civilized society and ourselves. It does not concern you, off-worlder, and the harpy is being quite bold to aggress us in an enclosed space. My name is Zasol. And you? Aultemus. Zenti, shut up, please, Fuson hisses. Zenti grimaces back at him. The tunnel the group is walking through begins to widen and drop off as the tunnel turns into a massive chamber with a city sitting atop a pillar of bedrock. The pillar stands in the middle of a lava pool, albeit hundreds of feet below them. The room is, however, perfectly regulated, as a slight breeze can be felt. The ceiling of the cave chamber looks like the night sky, with a tall tower shooting tiny beams of light at the ceiling. The city itself looks to have been carved out of what used to be a much larger rock. Everything is completely angular and wastes no space. There's an arched bridge the group begins to walk across that links the tunnel to the city proper. There are no guards, and the tunnel behind them closes. They walk through the city, which seems to be business as usual. The citizens give them weird looks, but for the most part, nothing happens as Zasol gestures them to stay quiet and gives them the occasional hand movement to guide the group along. They walk into a tall tower where the beams of light occasionally shoot from. As they enter, they see random orcs sitting at tables and circular couches going about their day. Led by Zasol, they walk up a huge spiral staircase enough to accommodate 5 or 6 people, shoulder to shoulder. The end of the staircase leads them to a huge library that extends up multiple floors. They see uniformed citizens moving platforms around the library to different levels. Zasol looks around and walks up to the closest wall and writes his name on a scroll hung up as he takes one of the platforms from the wall and lays it down for everyone to climb onto. Would one of you mind helping? Zasol asks, placing the platform before them. Stepping up, Aultemus offers, I'm good at earth magic, I can try. The two of them guide the platform up, Zasol telling Aultemus where to go as they ascend to the very top of the library. The top is very enclosed and shut away from the rest of the library. The group gets off of the platform and Zasol and Aultemus sit down on a small pile in the corner. They seem to be in a waiting room, as there are only a couple of desks with unlit candles, and a room for the platforms to be placed. Zasol knocks on a closed door in front of them, and it unlatches after a few seconds, as he quietly opens it. The room is wide open. There are 2 half-empty bookshelves on both sides, with long desks that extend to the rest of the wall. There's no ceiling here, and the top of the cave can be seen. There are 2 people on the far side of the room, surrounded by a globe floating on its own. One of the figures looks to be a young adult, while the other is a much older woman with the front of her hair going gray. She looks to be human. Her eyes and face are very sharp with brown mocha skin, and she has a very elegant, regal look to her, while everyone else thus far has been an orc of varying shades of gray. There are a couple of other people in the room, of varying ages around the first 2, sitting on the edges of the room watching. Zasol motions the group to the chairs on the side of the room but remains standing himself. A few minutes go by, and the human by the globe stands up straight and looks at the group. She nudges the young orc and then walks over to the group, the orc following behind him with his arms closed and shoulders stiff. Hello everyone. I saw you coming in the entrance as well as the angry friend who seems to be lagging quite a bit behind you all. The woman starts. Yeah, lady, sometimes we just really don't see eye to eye, so we like to keep them about a mile away from us, Fuson sarcastically blurts out. Everyone in the room is listening intently as to what the woman has to say. Yes, well, specters can be quite like you're talking to a rock, she says, giggling. How do you know what it is? Aultemus questions. I'm an astromancer, and so is this young man behind me, she explains casually. The group's eyes widen as Zenti goes pale looking at the young orc. According to the elders, he's the first orc-born astromancer in a few hundred years. Can any of you attest to any astromancers being born elsewhere? There are rumors of an elf-born astromancer and chronomancer siblings from Kange, but that existed a few hundred, if not thousands of years ago, and legends of an arcane aphanite maybe even longer before then, Siora stutters. Well, you're pretty lucky to have had 2 of the same race astromancers be born in a row. It helps ease the transfer of knowledge, the woman continues before getting interrupted. Right, but so can you help us get rid of the Spectre? Aultemus asks hurriedly. No, sorry, but I was going to tell you what I can do, seeing as though you're not from around here. And you did come all this way, the woman says with a smile. She looks around on one of the long tables, taps and pulls a pen out from a well, grabs a map of the region that was on the table. She circles 2 spots on the map before returning the ink to its well and walking over to the group. The woman says, pointing at the map, so this is where we are, and I circled a building that might have some leads or help you. It should be abandoned. Wouldn't that mean it was ransacked? What would we find there? Siora asks. The woman smiles as she puts a tiny purse from her pocket, unlashes it, and fingers through it. No one has ever been able to get inside, she continues, pulling out a thin metal card and handing it to Siora. This will get you in, and don't worry, I can get a new one. Everyone in the room besides Aultemus starts gasping and talking amongst themselves, mumbling, including the group. Elodie quickly takes over Fuson and runs over to look at the card, and then straight toward the woman who raises an eyebrow, sensing something is off. That's the same metal from the mysterious door not too far from here, and you're able to open it. Elodie desperately asks, How are you able to open it? The woman smiles and responds, You'll see. No, you don't get it. Elodie stops before getting interrupted as Siora punches her in the back. Why are you giving this to us? And why can't you go stop the Spectre? Aultemus asks, walking forward a couple steps. The woman turns around, still smiling. Because I'm busy here helping the people here. Where you're going will help plenty, and I need the Spectre to not follow you into the city. Additionally, I know none of you know this, but spatial magic doesn't work on itself. My attacks will simply slide around the Spectre. Now please go. The group look at each other, and Zenti starts marching to the door. Aultemus bows, saying thank you, before leaving with everyone else. The group is escorted out of the city through the other side, but the tunnel leading them out this time has rushing, freezing winds coming from it.